Why arm fat after 40 never goes away? It's a hormone problem, not a calorie problem. You have done the tricep pushdowns. You have done the overhead extensions. You have done the resistance band work. And that pocket of fat on the back of your arms is still there. It is not there because you are not working hard enough. It is not there because you are eating too much. It is there because after 40, your body developed a hormonal environment that specifically targets that exact location for fat storage. And here is what nobody tells you. Tricep exercises do not change that hormonal environment. Calorie restriction does not change that hormonal environment. More cardio does not change that hormonal environment. The only thing that changes it is understanding what caused it and addressing that specific cause directly. That is what this video is about. Here is the honest version of what is happening. After 40, and this is especially pronounced after 45, the hormonal landscape of the body shifts in ways that conventional fitness advice was never designed to address. Estrogen levels begin to fluctuate and decline. Testosterone drops in both men and women. Cortisol becomes chronically elevated. Growth hormone, the primary driver of fat metabolism, falls to a fraction of what it was at 30. Every one of these hormonal shifts has a specific effect on where your body stores fat and how resistant that fat becomes to conventional fat loss strategies. The tricep and upper arm region has a particularly high concentration of alpha-2 adrenergic receptors, the fat cell receptors that respond to fat-storing signals rather than fat-burning signals. And after 40, the hormonal shifts that occur dramatically increase the activity of those receptors in that exact location. This is not a fitness problem, it is a hormonal biology problem, and it requires a completely different approach. Fat cells are not all the same. Different regions of the body have different ratios of two types of adrenergic receptors, beta-2 receptors which respond to fat-burning signals, and alpha-2 receptors which respond to fat-storing signals. The tricep and upper arm region has one of the highest alpha-2 to beta-2 receptor ratios in the body. This means it is biologically predisposed to respond to fat-storing hormones more aggressively than most other areas. In your 20s and 30s, this predisposition is offset by healthy levels of estrogen, testosterone, and growth hormone, which maintain the fat-burning environment that keeps the alpha-2 receptors in check. After 40, that offset disappears. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found that the decline in estrogen that occurs during perimenopause and menopause directly increases alpha-2 receptor activity in peripheral fat deposits, the arms, thighs, and hips. The same fat that was manageable at 35 becomes actively resistant to loss at 45 because the hormonal environment governing those fat cells has fundamentally changed. The fat did not get harder to lose because you stopped trying. It got harder to lose because the biological system governing it changed without anyone telling you. Cortisol, the primary stress hormone, has a direct relationship with alpha-2 receptor activity. When cortisol is chronically elevated, it upregulates alpha-2 receptors throughout the body, but especially in peripheral fat deposits including the upper arms. This means chronic stress does not just make you gain fat generally. It specifically makes the fat in your arms, hips, and thighs more resistant to release. The mechanism works in two directions simultaneously. Elevated cortisol increases fat storage in the arm region by upregulating alpha-2 receptors, and elevated cortisol suppresses growth hormone, which is the primary hormonal signal that opens fat cells for release. So cortisol is both locking the fat in and blocking the key that could release it. Research published in obesity reviews found that chronically elevated cortisol was independently associated with increased peripheral fat deposition and resistance to fat loss, even in individuals who were in a calorie deficit. The calorie math was right. The hormonal environment was preventing the expected outcome. This is why people who are under significant stress, work pressure, poor sleep, and relationship strain often find that their fat loss stalls, specifically in these resistant areas, even when their diet and exercise are correct. Testosterone, in both men and women, is the primary driver of muscle protein synthesis and one of the key regulators of fat cell beta-2 receptor activity. In men, testosterone begins declining at approximately 1% per year after age 30. By age 45, most men have lost 15% or more of their peak testosterone. By 55, the average man has lost 25 to 30%. In women, testosterone is present at lower levels, but plays an equally critical role in maintaining muscle mass and fat metabolism. The testosterone decline in women accelerates significantly during perimenopause, often dropping 50% or more within a few years. The practical consequence of this decline is that the muscle tissue surrounding the upper arm, the tricep, the shoulder, the bicep, loses its capacity to generate the metabolic demand that would otherwise pull fat from the adjacent tissue. You can train the tricep, but if testosterone is too low to drive meaningful muscle protein synthesis in response to that training, the metabolic demand that muscle generates is insufficient to override the alpha-2 receptor activity in the fat tissue immediately adjacent to it. The exercise is correct. The hormonal environment is preventing the expected physiological response. Growth hormone is the single most powerful fat-mobilizing hormone in the body. It directly stimulates lipolysis, the release of stored fat from fat cells, through a mechanism that operates independently of insulin and cortisol. When growth hormone is high, fat cells open. When it is low, they do not, regardless of how much you exercise or how little you eat. Growth hormone peaks during deep sleep, specifically during the first 90 minutes of slow wave sleep. It also spikes during high-intensity exercise and during periods of fasting. After age 40, growth hormone production declines by approximately 14% per decade. By age 50, most adults are producing roughly 50% of the growth hormone they produced at 25. But here is the critical detail that makes this actionable. Growth hormone decline is not fixed. It is heavily influenced by three variables that are entirely within your control: sleep quality, exercise intensity, and the timing of your last meal relative to sleep. Poor sleep reduces the growth hormone pulse that occurs in the first 90 minutes of slow wave sleep by up to 70%. Eating within 2 hours of sleep elevates insulin, which directly suppresses growth hormone release. Low-intensity, steady-state cardio produces almost no growth hormone pulse, whereas resistance training and high-intensity intervals produce significant spikes. The upper arm fat that will not move is not resistant to growth hormone. It is resistant because growth hormone is too low to reach the level required to activate lipolysis in a high alpha-2 receptor density region. Raise growth hormone through sleep, through training intensity, and through meal timing, and the biological environment that is locking that fat in place changes. Before the protocol, here's the part most videos skip. Most people struggling with arm fat after 40 are already doing things. They are doing tricep pushdowns, overhead extensions, resistance band work, and extra cardio sessions. They are cutting calories. They are trying harder. The research is clear on why none of it is moving the specific fat in that region. Tricep isolation exercises do not change alpha-2 receptor sensitivity. They strengthen the muscle underneath the fat, which is valuable, but they do not alter the hormonal environment that is governing whether the fat cells above that muscle release their contents. You can have a strong tricep underneath a layer of hormonally resistant fat indefinitely. Calorie restriction alone does not raise growth hormone. In fact, severe calorie restriction chronically elevates cortisol, which suppresses growth hormone further and increases alpha-2 receptor activity. The harder you restrict without addressing the hormonal environment, the more resistant the fat becomes. Low-intensity steady-state cardio, walking on a treadmill, light cycling, moderate pace walking, produces almost no growth hormone pulse. It burns calories during the session, but it does not generate the hormonal signal required to shift the alpha-2 receptor environment in a high-resistance fat deposit. These are not bad habits. Walking is good for you. Cutting processed food is good for you. Tricep exercises are good for you. The problem is not that you have been doing wrong things. The problem is that you have been applying correct general health strategies to a specific hormonal problem, and correct general strategies do not fix specific hormonal problems. That is the gap the protocol closes. Here is the protocol, specific, sequenced, and built around the hormonal mechanisms the research actually identifies. Step 1. Fix your sleep window before anything else. Growth hormone peaks in the first 90 minutes of slow wave sleep. If your sleep is fragmented, shortened, or disrupted by elevated cortisol, that pulse is suppressed before it can mobilize fat. 7 to 9 hours minimum. Consistent sleep and wake times. Complete darkness. Room temperature between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit. This single change is the highest leverage intervention for the hormonal environment driving arm fat storage. Step 2. Stop eating 2 hours before sleep. Insulin suppresses growth hormone directly. A meal within 2 hours of sleep elevates insulin during the precise window when growth hormone should be at its daily peak. Move your last meal earlier. Protect the growth hormone window. Step 3. Replace steady-state cardio with resistance training for the upper body. Not because tricep exercises burn arm fat directly, they do not, but because compound resistance training generates the testosterone and growth hormone response that changes the hormonal environment governing the fat tissue in that region. The specific movements that produce this hormonal response are compound exercises that recruit multiple muscle groups simultaneously: push-ups and overhead press for the pushing pattern, rows and lat pull-downs for the pulling pattern, and loaded carries for total upper body tension. These are not isolation exercises, they are movements that create enough total muscle recruitment to generate a meaningful hormonal signal. 3 sessions per week with progressive overload, meaning you add a small amount of resistance or an extra repetition each week, is the minimum threshold the research identifies for meaningful hormonal adaptation. If you have been doing tricep kickbacks and resistance band pulls exclusively, this is the shift that changes the hormonal environment those movements cannot reach. Step 4. Manage cortisol deliberately. Morning phone avoidance, protein first breakfast, walking after meals. Each of these directly lowers the chronic cortisol elevation that is upregulating alpha-2 receptor activity in your arm fat. The cortisol morning video already on this channel covers this in specific detail. Link is in the description. Step 5. Be patient for a minimum of 90 days. Hormonal adaptation does not happen in 2 weeks. The alpha-2 receptor sensitivity that has been building since your early 40s will not reverse in a single month. The research consistently shows that meaningful changes in peripheral fat distribution require 90 days of consistent hormonal environment improvement before the fat cells in high alpha-2 receptor density regions begin to respond. Every protocol in this video works together as a system, not as individual pieces. The sleep fix raises growth hormone. The meal timing protects the growth hormone window. The resistance training generates the testosterone response. The cortisol management opens the alpha-2 receptors to fat-burning signals. Pull any one of those pieces out and the system loses its leverage. If this helped, hit the like button below and subscribe if you want more science-backed health and fat loss videos without the nonsense. Follow us on Instagram and X in the description below for regular health updates, tips, and tricks. Also make sure to visit to the diet and exercise website in the comments below. We already did the research for you and found only evidence-backed and lab-tested items to get you the best results. And remember, when it comes to diet and exercise, there are no gimmicks, just results, my friend.